Jim Jordan thought it would be just another day at the office, grilling, interrupting, and steamrolling his way through yet another hearing. But what he didn't expect was to get completely dismantled by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, live on national TV. What happened next left the entire room stunned and the internet on fire. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a total humiliation, and it might be the moment that changes everything for both of them. Let's break it down. Live on national television, Jim Jordan, one of the loudest, most aggressive Republicans in Congress, came in ready for a fight. He was smirking, confident, and fully expecting to steamroll over anyone who got in his way. That's his signature move. Talk over people, throw out rapid-fire accusations, and control the room through sheer volume. But on this day, his opponent wasn't someone who would shrink or stumble. Sitting across from him was Representative Jasmine Crockett, a rising Democratic powerhouse who wasn't about to let Jordan's antics go unchecked. What followed wasn't just a debate. It was a complete dismantling. From the moment Crockett opened her mouth, the vibe shifted. She was calm, collected, and deadly precise. Jordan jumped in quickly, trying to dominate the conversation like he always does. He interrupted her, tried to twist her words, and kept pushing aggressive questions. But Jasmine didn't flinch, not even for a second. She looked straight at him and said, "You don't get to ask a question and answer it, too." That one line changed everything. It was a clapback so sharp and delivered so effortlessly that Jordan visibly recoiled. He wasn't used to this. He wasn't used to someone who wouldn't let him run wild with the narrative. She didn't just push back. She took control of the entire room. And what made it worse for Jordan was that Crockett wasn't rattled. She stayed composed. Every time he tried to throw her off, she fired back with facts, legal references, and razor-sharp logic. She wasn't yelling. She didn't need to. Her words cut through Jordan's noise like a knife. She exposed the weakness of his arguments, one by one. At one point, when Jordan tried to accuse her of contradicting herself, she leaned forward and calmly said, "Maybe if you listened instead of yelling, you'd understand it." That line exploded on social media. People were cheering from their couches. Comment sections lit up. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere you looked, people were replaying that moment over and over again. And you could see it all over Jordan's face. He had no comeback. His mouth opened slightly like he wanted to respond, but nothing came out. He had been completely outmaneuvered, live on national television, and he knew it. This wasn't just another congressional hearing. This was a public reckoning. Jasmine Crockett came prepared not just to defend herself, but to expose everything wrong with Jordan's style of politics. His usual tactics of loud talking, finger-pointing, and rapid interruptions didn't work here. Crockett saw them coming, and she shut them down like a pro. Every time Jordan tried to regain control, Crockett flipped it back on him. She wasn't afraid of his aggression. She didn't let the pressure rattle her. In fact, it seemed like the more he pushed, the stronger she got. And that's what made the moment so powerful. We've seen Jim Jordan in these situations before. He barks, he bullies, and usually people back down. But not Jasmine. She had the courage, the facts, and the presence of mind to not just hold her own, but to dominate the entire exchange. She didn't play his game. She made him play hers. By the end of the hearing, Jordan wasn't talking as much. He had grown quieter, visibly annoyed, maybe even embarrassed. Crockett, meanwhile, walked out of that room with a surge of new supporters and viral video clips that would be replayed for weeks. This wasn't just a moment of political theater. It was a shift. A real-time example of what happens when someone refuses to be silenced, refuses to be intimidated, and refuses to play nice with people who play dirty. Jasmine Crockett showed what it looks like when you stand firm, armed with truth and courage, and speak with clarity even as chaos swirls around you. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to insult. Her power came from precision, from being in full control of her facts, her emotions, and the moment. Jordan thought he was walking into another easy win. Instead, he walked straight into a trap. And the best part? He set it for himself. Because every time he tried to twist the narrative, every time he tried to grandstand, he just gave Crockett more openings, and she took full advantage. In a world where political debates often descend into yelling matches and empty slogans, Jasmine Crockett reminded everyone what real leadership looks like. It looks like staying calm under pressure. It looks like speaking truth to power. It looks like refusing to be bullied, even when the bully is yelling at full volume. And most of all, it looks like knowing your stuff so well that your opponent simply runs out of things to say. Jim Jordan had no idea what hit him, and that's what made it so satisfying to watch. This wasn't just a political win for Jasmine Crockett. It was a cultural moment, a televised reality check, a mic drop that echoed far beyond the hearing room. People didn't just see her win the argument, they felt it. And as the clip continues to spread, more and more people are realizing Jasmine Crockett is not the one to mess with. Before the cameras started rolling and before Jasmine Crockett delivered the takedown that now has millions talking, there was a long simmering tension between her and Jim Jordan. The political divide between the two is obvious. Crockett, a bold and unapologetic Democrat from Texas, has quickly made a name for herself by speaking truth to power, while Jordan, a firebrand Republican from Ohio, has spent years cultivating a reputation for loud, combative questioning, especially in high-stakes committee hearings. But this wasn't their first heated exchange. It was just the first time one of them got publicly exposed. The lead-up to this moment had been building for weeks. Jordan, as chair of the House Judiciary Committee, had been pushing an aggressive agenda filled with partisan attacks on the Biden administration. He'd been using committee hearings as platforms to throw red meat to his base, often targeting Democrats with loaded questions and constant interruptions. Crockett, known for her courtroom-like precision and cool under fire, had already clashed with him in previous sessions. Viewers who follow these hearings closely could sense it. The fireworks were coming, and both sides knew it. In the days before this explosive session, Jim Jordan had been ramping up his usual tactics. He was making rounds on conservative media, doubling down on political attacks, and previewing what looked like another attempt to corner and embarrass Democrats during the next hearing. Many expected Jordan to dominate the room, like he often does. What they didn't expect was that Jasmine Crockett was preparing just as aggressively, not to play defense, but to flip the script. Insiders say she studied Jordan's past questioning patterns, rehearsed responses to his favorite tactics, and prepared counterpoints with surgical precision. She wasn't just preparing to respond. She was preparing to lead. Her team knew what Jordan was bringing to the table. Fast-talking, shouting, misquoting documents, cutting people off mid-answer. But Crockett wasn't going to play by his rules. She planned to remain composed, factual, and unshakable. And that preparation made all the difference. By the time the hearing began, there was already a buzz online that something was about to go down. Political Twitter was watching, journalists were tuned in, and clips from the hearing were already being clipped and shared in real time. What started as a routine committee session quickly turned into a televised showdown. Jordan started strong, launching into an aggressive line of questioning. He leaned forward, raised his voice, and tried to catch Crockett in a contradiction. But she was ready. Every accusation he hurled was met with calm, devastating clarity. Every attempt to interrupt her was swatted away with confidence. And in that moment, it became clear this wasn't the same game anymore. Jasmine Crockett wasn't there to just defend her party or her position. She was there to expose Jordan's tactics for what they were: noise. And she did it in front of millions. Jasmine Crockett didn't walk into that hearing room to simply survive a Jim Jordan attack. She walked to dominate it, and what unfolded on live television was the result of a meticulously crafted strategy that left one of the GOP's loudest voices visibly defeated. From the moment the hearing began, Crockett's approach was surgical. She didn't yell, she didn't flail, and she didn't allow herself to be dragged into Jordan's usual performance-style politics. What she did instead was expose every hole in his arguments, every flaw in his approach, and every weakness in his playbook, not by matching his volume, but by controlling the temperature of the entire room. That's what made her performance so flawless. Jim Jordan is not an easy opponent. He doesn't debate, he overwhelms. His entire style is based on constant interruptions, rapid-fire questions, aggressive tone, an assumption that whoever he's questioning will get flustered and make a mistake. It's a tactic that's worked for him in countless hearings. He counts on rattling people. He counts on them being caught off guard. But Jasmine Crockett saw through all of that. She didn't just prepare her talking points. She prepared for him, and her plan wasn't just to resist his aggression. It was to make it backfire live in front of millions. Crockett's strategic brilliance started with her demeanor, while Jordan launched into his usual performance. Fast, loud, accusatory. She sat still, eyes locked, posture straight. She listened closely to every word, and when it was her turn to respond, she didn't rush. She didn't try to overpower him. Instead, she spoke with deliberate clarity, forcing the room to shift its attention away from Jordan's noise and onto her words. She wasn't there to match his energy. She was there to redirect it, and she did that by anchoring herself in facts, refusing to be baited into emotional responses, and maintaining a level of composure that made Jordan's aggression look childish by comparison. She used his own tactics against him. Every time he interrupted, she calmly waited, letting him burn himself out. Every time he tried to reframe the issue with misleading language, she corrected him, not with outrage, but with cool, unshakable authority. This contrast made her stand out even more. Where Jordan came off as flustered and performative, Crockett appeared professional, precise, and completely in control. It was like watching a chess master play against someone who only knows how to shout check. Over and over again, one of the most talked about moments of the exchange came when Jordan tried to accuse Crockett of contradicting herself. With his usual bravado, he leaned forward, wagged his finger, and tried to paint her into a corner. But Crockett didn't blink. She waited for him to finish, then delivered the line that stopped him cold. "It's the same point, Jim. Maybe if you listened instead of yelling, you'd understand it." That wasn't just a clever rebuttal. That was the moment she flipped the script entirely. Jordan wasn't the prosecutor anymore. He was the punchline. Her strategy extended beyond her words. She knew how to use body language to signal control. She didn't fidget. She didn't raise her voice. Her calm tone forced viewers to lean in, to pay closer attention, and in doing so, she took the power away from Jordan's usual theatrics, while he kept ramping up the intensity, hoping to create a moment that could go viral for his base. Crockett was slowly, masterfully creating a viral moment of her own, one grounded not in volume, but in substance. And the beauty of her strategy was that she made it look effortless. In reality, this kind of performance takes incredible preparation. Sources close to Crockett said she had reviewed Jordan's past hearings in detail. She studied the kind of questions he asks, how he frames arguments, where he tries to trip people up. She worked with her team to prepare responses that could stand up to distortion. She thought through every possible attack he might launch, and then rehearsed how to stay calm while dismantling each one. This wasn't just good politics. It was courtroom discipline, refined and unleashed at the perfect moment. But Crockett's strategy also had a broader purpose. It wasn't just about defeating Jim Jordan in that moment. It was about showing people across the country, especially young women, especially people of color, that you can push back against the noise, that you can hold your ground without losing your cool, that truth, clarity, and preparation can stand taller than chaos. And the message landed. Social media exploded not just with applause, but with gratitude. People saw themselves in her. They saw someone who didn't compromise, didn't shrink, and didn't let the moment pass. She met the moment, and then she owned it. In contrast, Jordan's strategy completely unraveled. As Crockett, it was a moment that lit up every corner of the internet. A single exchange that turned a routine congressional hearing into a national spectacle. Jasmine Crockett didn't just deliver a memorable line. She delivered a moment, one that resonated instantly, replayed endlessly, and was shared with captions like, "This is how you shut him down." And Crockett just gave a masterclass in composure. But what exactly made this moment so viral? It wasn't just what she said, it was a build-up, the timing, the tone, and the undeniable shift in power that unfolded right in front of our eyes. It began when Jim Jordan, already frustrated that he couldn't rattle Crockett, like he usually does with other lawmakers, tried to corner her with what he thought was a gotcha moment. He accused her of contradicting herself. He leaned forward, index finger wagging, voice elevated, eyebrows furrowed like he caught her in some legal trap. "So, which is it, Congresswoman?" he said, almost smugly, as if waiting for her to trip over her words or stumble trying to explain. But she didn't blink. She didn't stammer. She didn't play his game. Instead, with a slight smile and perfect calm, She responded, "It's the same point, Jim. Maybe if you listened instead of yelling, you'd understand it." And just like that, silence. No one said a word. Jordan didn't even have a follow-up. He looked momentarily stunned, as if he didn't expect to be called out so directly, and certainly not with that level of poise. The entire atmosphere of the room changed. Crockett wasn't just answering. She was teaching. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult him. She simply pointed out the obvious. Jordan wasn't there to understand. He was there to perform. And in one sentence, she exposed that performance as hollow. That exact moment, captured in high definition, shared in 1,000 formats, and viewed by millions within hours, became one of the most talked about political clapbacks of the year. Clips of the exchange flooded social media platforms within minutes. On Twitter, hashtags like hashtag Crockett versus Jordan, hashtag Listen Jim, and hashtag Crockett Clapback began trending nationwide. Influencers, journalists, even celebrities started chiming in, praising the Texas Congresswoman's poise and wit. TikTok creators began adding music, captions, dramatic zoom-ins, and commentary, turning that short clip into meme-worthy content that traveled far beyond the usual political circles. And it wasn't just the internet. News outlets picked it up too. CNN played the clip repeatedly, calling it a moment of clarity in a sea of noise. MSNBC analysts described it as a pivot point that showcased why Crockett is gaining traction as one of the most formidable voices in Congress. Even more neutral platforms like C-SPAN saw an unusual spike in views and engagement, all pointing back to that moment. What resonated so deeply with people wasn't just that she owned Jim Jordan, though she did. It was that she did it in a way that flipped the power dynamic. We're used to seeing loud voices dominate these hearings. We're used to interruptions, shouting, theatrics. But Crockett's calm, calculated takedown felt like justice. It felt like watching someone take back control of the conversation and remind everyone watching that facts, intelligence, and grace still matter, even in Washington. One commenter on Instagram said, "This wasn't just a response. This was a masterclass in how to dismantle a bully without stooping to his level." Another added, "Jasmine Crockett is the voice we've been waiting for. She didn't just win the moment. She changed energy." And it's true. The energy did shift. Jim Jordan, who usually controls the pace of these hearings, looked visibly thrown off. He went quieter. He stopped interrupting as much, and his confidence noticeably faded. It wasn't because Crockett yelled louder or hit harder. It was because she showed him and everyone watching that the old tactics wouldn't work on her. She made him irrelevant in real time. Even her facial expressions played a role. The way she paused after delivering the line, giving it room to breathe, letting the silence speak louder than any argument. That was deliberate. That was power. And people felt it. Across the country, people replayed it not just for entertainment, but for empowerment. It was the kind of moment that cuts through political noise and reaches people on a human level. It showed that confidence doesn't have to come with chaos. That intelligence can overpower intimidation. That calm can crush loud. By the end of the hearing, it was clear who had won, not just in the court of public opinion, but in the room itself. Crockett had redefined the conversation. She didn't just defend her views. She defended decency. She proved that you don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to speak truth with conviction. And in an age where viral moments often reward outrage, this one rewarded something far more valuable: authentic strength. The hearing may have ended, but the ripple effects from Jasmine Crockett's takedown of Jim Jordan were just beginning. What happened in that room didn't stay within the walls of Congress. It exploded across the country. The moment went viral within minutes, and within hours, it became the dominant political conversation online. But beyond the memes and trending hashtags, this exchange marked something deeper. The undeniable rise of Jasmine Crockett as a political force, and the equally undeniable embarrassment of Jim Jordan, who for once was caught without a response. Let's start with Jordan, a seasoned political veteran, known for bulldozing his way through hearings and overpowering witnesses or opponents with volume and aggression. Jordan had made a career out of dominating these kinds of exchanges. He thrived in chaos. His goal was rarely to uncover truth. It was to control the narrative, stir outrage, and grab headlines. And for the most part, it worked. Until now. Because what Jasmine Crockett did wasn't just answer his attacks. She exposed the shallowness of his strategy. She showed that when stripped of his usual tactics, when faced with someone who doesn't play into his shouting matches or get rattled by his bluster, Jim Jordan runs out of steam. He runs out of facts. He runs out of room to hide. After the hearing, Jordan did what many politicians do when they've taken a hit. He went quiet. There were no viral follow-up videos, no proud recaps on conservative talk shows, no grand declarations about winning the exchange. In fact, the silence spoke volumes. He knew it. His team knew it. And the public definitely knew it. He got humiliated. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's star began to rise like never before. If people didn't know her name before that moment, they did now. Clips of her calm, cutting responses were replayed not just in political echo chambers, but on mainstream platforms, daytime shows, evening news, political panels, even comedy segments. She wasn't just being praised for her wit or delivery. She was being celebrated for how she handled herself, with clarity, with class, and with conviction. That kind of composure under fire is rare in politics, and it instantly set her apart. Voters noticed. Activists noticed. So did the media. She was suddenly in high demand, appearing in interviews, quoted in headlines, and lifted up as a voice for a new generation of leadership. But Crockett's rise isn't just about a viral moment. It's about what that moment represented. It represented the power of preparation, the importance of standing your ground, the idea that you don't have to scream to be powerful. That truth, delivered with precision and confidence, still wins. It was a clear rejection of the performative style of politics that people are growing increasingly tired of, the yelling, the posturing, the bad faith arguments. Crockett offered something different, something better. This moment also energized her base. Supporters, especially women, young voters, and communities of color, rallied behind her. They saw themselves in her, someone who's constantly underestimated, talked over, or dismissed, yet refuses to shrink. Someone who stands toe-to-toe with the loudest voices in the room and owns the space without compromising who they are. That connection, that authenticity, is what made the moment stick. It wasn't just a political win. It was emotional. It was personal. It was real. And in a landscape where authenticity is everything, Crockett just proved she has in spades. Politically, this moment gave her a boost that can't be bought. Lawmakers across the aisle took notice. Democrats saw a leader in the making, someone who could not only withstand pressure, but also flip it to her advantage. Strategists began discussing her potential for higher office. Fundraising surged. Her online following grew overnight. In the eyes of many, she wasn't just a member of Congress anymore. She was a rising national voice, one who could carry the torch of truth through the fog of disinformation and chaos. On the other side, the moment exposed something Republicans didn't want to admit, that their loudest voices are starting to lose their edge. That shouting isn't enough. That when someone challenges you with facts, when someone refuses to flinch, the whole house of cards starts to shake. Jim Jordan learned that the hard way. He walked into that hearing thinking it would be another notch on his belt. Instead, it turned into a public lesson in why underestimating your opponent, especially one as sharp as Jasmine Crockett, is a mistake you won't recover from quickly. The hearing may have ended in a matter of hours, but the legacy of that moment will last much longer. It will be replayed in campaign ads, remembered in political debates, and referenced every time someone asks, who can really stand up to the noise in Washington? Because now the answer is clear: Jasmine Crockett. She didn't just clap back, she claimed the room. And by doing so, she reminded us all that real power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just speaks clearly and lets the silence that follows say the rest. Jasmine Crockett didn't just survive Jim Jordan's attack. She flipped the script, took control, and delivered the kind of truth that echoed across the country. While Jordan sat stunned and speechless, Crockett walked out stronger, sharper, and more respected than ever before. If you think this was powerful, you haven't seen anything yet. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more raw political moments. And let me know in the comments, did Jasmine just end Jim Jordan's reign of chaos in Congress? This is State Talk, and we bring you the stories they don't want you to see.